Chapter 9. The Salt March. In 1922, Gandhi had wanted to start a civil disobedience campaign in Bardoli in Gujarat, but he had cancelled it because of the violence at Chauri Chaura. In 1928, he decided that the time was right for civil disobedience and that Bardoli was still the right place for it. The British had just increased land taxes in the Bardoli villages, and the peasants were very angry. They began a campaign of civil disobedience, and for 4 months they did not pay their taxes. The government took away their land and animals and put hundreds of people in prison, but the peasants stayed strong. On the 6th of August, their non-violent campaign won. The government gave back the peasants' land and animals, let the campaigners out of prison, and cancelled the increase in taxes. Civil disobedience had won in Bardoli, and many in India now wanted a campaign across the whole country. But Gandhi had learnt to wait for the right time and the right place. The Congress met in Calcutta in December 1928, and at that meeting younger members, Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhas Bose, became important voices. They did not think it was enough for India to become a dominion and wanted the country to be completely independent. Gandhi was not sure that the Congress was ready for such a difficult fight. But he at last agreed that if India had not become a dominion by the 31st of December 1929, the Congress would call for complete independence. Gandhi knew that 1929 was going to be an important year, and he spent a lot of time travelling around the country. There was some violence against the British that year, and Gandhi could see that he needed to find a satyagraha campaign for people to follow. Young Indians wanted change, and Gandhi had to find a way for them to fight for it peacefully. In May 1929, a new Labour government took power in England, and in June the British Viceroy Lord Irwin went to England for talks. When he returned in October, he told Indians that there would be a round-table conference the next year for people from the British government and from British India and the princely states. The Simon Commission was sent home, and Irwin said that India was looking towards becoming a dominion. On the 23rd of December, Gandhi and other Indian leaders went to Delhi to meet with Lord Irwin. They wanted him to promise that India would become a dominion and that a new constitution would be made at the Round Table Conference. But there were many in the British government who were against this, and Irwin knew that he could not make the promise. So, at midnight on the 31st of December, as the new year began, Congress members in Lahore put up the Congress flag and promised to fight for complete independence. They wanted Gandhi to decide how the fight would happen, but at first Gandhi had no ideas. "I am thinking night and day," he told his friend Rabindranath Tagore in January, "and I do not see any light coming out of the darkness all around." Then, in February 1930, Gandhi suddenly knew what they had to do. The Indian people would start a satyagraha campaign about salt. Many people laughed at the idea at first. How could India use something as important as satyagraha to fight about something as unimportant as salt? But Gandhi was sure that he was right. Salt came in from the sea all around India, but under the British salt law, Indians could not collect or sell it without paying a very high tax. It was cheaper for Indians to buy salt from the British, though they also had to pay tax on that. The salt law taxed everybody, Hindus and Muslims, peasants and those who had no land. Everyone needed salt, and the poor Indian working hard in the hot sun needed it more than anyone else. On the 12th of March, Gandhi and more than 70 others from the Sabarmati ashram began to walk to Dandi, 200 miles away. They walked for 24 days, stopping in villages where Gandhi spoke to the people. He told them to spin their own cloth, not to drink alcohol, and when the time was right, to break the salt law. Many people from the villages joined the marchers, and when Gandhi reached the sea at Dandi on the 5th of April, there were thousands of people with him. Early the next morning, Gandhi went into the sea and picked up some salt in his hand. He had broken the law. India had waited for this satyagraha for a long time. Hundreds of thousands of Indians went to the beach to make salt, drying it in dishes in the sun. Many people were arrested, and the police were often violent, hitting satyagrahis. By the end of April, thousands of people were in prison, and Jawaharlal Nehru, the president of the Congress, and two of Gandhi's sons, Ramdas and Devadas, had also been arrested. But the campaign did not stop. In Bihar, tens of thousands of people marched out of the city to make salt, and in Karachi, 50,000 people watched while salt was made on the beach. In other parts of India, peasants stopped paying rent and land tax. Women demonstrated in the streets, and people stood outside shops to stop anyone buying alcohol and foreign cloth. There was almost no violence, but more than 60,000 satyagrahis were arrested for breaking the salt law. Gandhi now decided that he and his marchers would attack the depot at Darasana, where the British government kept its salt. But on the 4th of May, policemen came to arrest Gandhi in the middle of the night at Karadi, where he was camping with other marchers, and he was put in prison without trial. The marchers were without the leader they loved, but nothing could stop them now. On the 21st of May, they made the attack at Darasana. About 2,500 satyagrahis moved quietly towards the salt depot. When policemen told them to stop, they kept moving, and at once the policemen came forward. They hit the satyagrahis on their heads and shoulders with lathis, heavy metal-ended sticks, and many of them fell to the ground, but not one of them fought back. The satyagrahis could see that they might be injured or killed, but they marched forwards without stopping. In the end, 4 died, and more than 1,000 were injured. There were international reporters at Darasana that day, and the world soon heard what had happened. The satyagrahis had not taken very much salt, but they had shown the world that the British Raj treated Indian people cruelly and unfairly. They had also shown, and learnt for themselves, that they had the power to free themselves from British rule.